Welcome to episode 4 of the Mindful Classroom. I fell a little bit behind. Today's my catch up day, but I want to do a little bit of bookkeeping very quickly. Number one, as you listen, you may notice a visit or hear a visit from my dog Scout. She was very curious what was going on. And then she got bored and went downstairs. And two, when I tried to give a quick shout out to the Desatnik Realty podcast, I inadvertently left out the fact that that podcast is called Coastal Currents. So if you search on whatever your podcast app is, however you listen, just look up Coastal Currents. Welcome back to the Mindful Classroom. I apologize about hitting a glitch. You can say hi to our guest today. This is Scout. She's nosy, but she's not whining, so at least there's not a distraction at the moment. And what I wanted to do today was go back to a meditation. We started off doing some following our breath, really tuning into the in-breath and the out-breath. And in part, that'll be a basis. So most likely, I'll start most meditations grounding with that and then go into whatever form we're going to do. Today, we'll look at a meditation on sound. And so as you follow my directions, the sound around me will be different than the sound around you. So you'll really have to work with what's around you. And the nice thing about this is any distractions are a part of it. So if you're focused on one sound and another comes along, that's an okay thing. You can focus yourself to stay on the sound you're on originally, or you can transfer yourself to the new sound and make that the center point. But the nice thing, just like the breath, the nice thing with sound is every sound is that moment. It has a beginning, it moves along, it has an end, but it teaches you to remain in that moment. So before we get into the meditation, I wanted to share with you a poem. For those of you who have sat in a meditation class with me or any kind of instruction, you might have heard this poem before. And you may, even if you haven't been with me, you may have heard this poem before because it's a very famous poem from the poet Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been set as a guide from beyond. And I love this poem because it reminds us to accept what happens to us. You know, the idea that we're a guest house. And today I might be sitting with joy. And if I do it improperly, I worry that tomorrow I won't be as happy as I am today. Instead of just enjoying this moment I have. Likewise, there might be a day that I'm sitting with sorrow, that I feel horrible about what's happening and where my life is. But that too is just, it's just a moment. And if we're careful, and it's okay to feel sad and it's okay to feel angry, and it's okay to have all those feelings in the moment. But I have to realize that they'll pass as well. And sometimes they open you up and they clean you up for the next guest that's going to come in. That might be the greatest feeling that you could ask for, the greatest feeling that you could have. So kind of what's important here is two things. One, don't try to control what you feel because it's what you feel. But two, don't add to what you feel because sometimes we perpetuate something that doesn't need to be there by just fixating on it and thinking about it and thinking about it. There's a Buddhist term for this, which is called the second arrow. And that's the arrow that's the worst arrow. So in an example of this would be you're out for a walk and You're walking along a trail, it's winter, it's icy, you hit a patch, you slip and fall. That's the first arrow. That's something that happens to you. But then you launch into the second arrow, which is, why does this always happen to me? Oh, I can't believe I fell. Nobody else has fallen. I'm always the one that takes a walk and falls. And it's that second arrow that's the one that does the most damage. And it's the one we do to ourselves. And it's the one that we can control if we're very careful. Because things happen. Things happen to all of us. And it doesn't matter what you do, accidents happen. But it's that game of blame that we play. It's the way that we always bury ourselves in our guilt or our anxiety or our frustration. And everything we're doing here is a way to prepare yourself to not always feeling that second arrow. So, a little different today. I decided to do it upstairs so that if you're in a chair, I'm not on a cushion. You can do your meditations on a chair just as easily as you can do them on a cushion, lying down, kneeling, sitting cross-legged, whatever it happens to be. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is, even if you're sitting, sit up straight. If you're listening to this and you're driving, maybe pause it, bring it back at a time when you're not driving so that you can actually go through this meditation. But as we sit here, I ask everybody to close your eyes if you're comfortable with your eyes closed. If you don't like having your eyes closed, pick an area slightly in front of you on the floor. Soften your gaze, looking at that area. And we're going to start with 3 deep breaths into our stomach. And if you put your hand on your stomach, you should feel your stomach expand every time you take these breaths. So you're taking a full deep breath instead of a shallow breath. So as we breathe in, imagine that string again running along your spine and out the top of your head. Take a deep breath in and feel your body straighten up. Nice straight posture. And then as you breathe out your mouth, fully breathing out. Let your shoulders drop and just relax into the seat. Now take one more deep breath in. Body straightening up, feeling your spine going straight. And this time as you breathe out, not just your shoulders, but try to relax your face. If you have your eyes closed, you don't want to have your eyes clenched. Let your jaw relax. And finally, one more deep breath in. And slowly let this breath out of your mouth. Feet flat on the ground and just settle into your space where you are. Now picking up from the last time we were here, for a moment just focus on your breath. Whether you feel that breath with your stomach rising and falling, maybe you feel that breath in your chest, or even as the air enters and exits at the bottom of your nostrils. But just focus on your breath for about 30 seconds. Leave everything that happened before behind. And we're just in this present time, we're in the here and now. We're not thinking about what we're doing later today. We're not worried about what happened an hour earlier. We're in the present moment, just focused on now. Keep this focus for about 10 more seconds. As we get ready to go a little deeper into this, same as before, if you find yourself having a thought come into your head, just acknowledge that thought. Know it's there. And then, like a cloud, just watch it drift across the sky till you come back to a clear sky and your mind has no more thoughts. Don't be upset if you have a thought. It's a natural part of who we are, but don't be controlled by your thoughts. So today we're going to look at focusing on the sounds around us. So as your eyes closed and you're focused on this meditation, excuse me, try to listen to a sound you hear around you. It's going to be different for everybody. If you have a dog at your feet, it might be her breathing. Maybe it's a clock that's ticking close by. Perhaps an airplane's flying outside your window, or you hear the birds at the bird feeder. But just open yourself up to any sound you have around you and try to zero in on one of those sounds and focus on it. As you stay with that sound, try to really hear all the nuance of the sound. The high, the low, if it's loud and becomes quiet. Right now I'm going to let you just do that for about 1 minute. If you hear a different sound, don't let it distract you. Just stay with the original sound that you're feeling. Now, as you made it to a minute, try to see if you can put your attention to a different sound. Maybe something more subtle, depending on where you are. Perhaps it's the heat going on or off. If you're in a warm weather area, maybe it's the air conditioning. But just try to tune into that sound. And this time I'm going to try to let us go for 2 minutes listening to that sound. And remember, before I start, if you find yourself thinking about something, the moment you realize that you're thinking, that's the moment of mindfulness. That's when you are in control instead of your thinking being in control. And just see that thought and let it very quickly drift by and come back to a focus on sound. 40 seconds to go. Stay on that focus of a sound. Keeping your eyes closed, we're just going to come back again the same way we opened up, to 3 deep breaths. Just a really deep breath in, fully feeling your stomach come out. Notice the pause at the top of the breath. Let the breath go, grounding into the moment. One more time, deep breath in, really noticing the start, where that breath is at the top. Maybe pause that second and let the breath out. And then one more breath in. Holding at the top. And very quickly let it out. And now you're going to hear a bell ring 3 times. And as that bell rings, slowly open your eyes and come back into this moment. And that was just a quick little meditation on our breath as we follow along. So far, you can look at a previous episode. We did a meditation on our breath. Today we did a meditation focusing on sound, but kind of came back to breath. Breath is such a fundamental part of who we are. It ties into so many of them. And we'll continue with others as we go along in the series. I want to end you with another story. I was walking the dog today, and for some reason this story came to mind, and I like it, and I think it kind of showcases a little bit of our reactionary nature that we sometimes have. So there's a story of a monk in China who really wanted to focus and develop their meditation to a level that nobody had ever had. So they wanted to be in absolute silence as much as possible. So initially this monk began just meditating outside. And as he was meditating outside, slowly but surely, he would hear the bells from the monastery, and it would disturb him. And he would come back to his meditation, but he wanted this pure, perfect meditation. So he then started to lock himself in his cell, where he could just be in his cell. But he could still hear footsteps of people walking up and down the hall, or the brooms sweeping in the hall. And as he searched and searched, he realized there was a lake. And he thought, if I took a boat out into the middle of the lake, where nobody could knock on my door, I wouldn't hear the sweeping, I wouldn't hear the gong, I could meditate for hours and see at the deepest state that I could get to. So he took a rowboat and he rowed out to the center of the lake. And as he's sitting in the center of the lake, he's deeply meditating. He's about an hour and a half into his meditation. Just at this point feels absolutely pure. His eyes are closed. He's really just in the moment. And suddenly he feels his boat get bumped by another boat. And all of a sudden he just feels this flush of anger come through him, that I'm in this perfect place and someone still managed to disturb me. So he opened his eyes ready to scream at whoever was in that other boat. And he realized it was an empty boat that had just drifted from a dock and bumped him. And now there was no one to be mad at but himself. And so often that's the disturbances that we feel in our life. So for instance, when I'm running late, I need to make it to an appointment and I haven't given myself enough time. Inevitably, the person in front of me is driving below the speed limit, or they don't know where they're going, they're stopping at every corner, and I can feel myself getting really angry with them because they're making me late. And like that empty boat, the reality is they're not making me late. I made myself late. If I had left with enough time, this little bit of a delay wouldn't have been an issue. If I had left with enough time, I would have most likely been in front of them rather than behind them. So as we go through these mindful practices, and if you're listening, I really encourage you, try to do them a couple times a week, 3, 4, 5 days a week. It doesn't have to be long. Maybe you set aside 5 minutes and each week, if you want to keep trying the practice that we've done, or look for an app that has a practice you can follow, what you start realizing is you start getting in control of how you can respond rather than react. And ultimately, when we can get to the point that we can respond to situations rather than react to situations, then we can enter and engage in things in a calmer nature. So as always, I thank you for joining me today. I really do apologize that I've kind of fallen out of rhythm. I will be back on rhythm for Wednesday and Friday this week. So I'm recording 2 today that I can put up to get myself caught up. And then I'm going to record some that I can backfeed so that if I go away or something happens, I can consistently keep this podcast or YouTube series, depending on where you're watching it, happening live. I'd also like to give a plug for a podcast that Tasatnik Realty is doing. It is Connor Eckel and Ryan Krause. And luckily, they invited me on to be the guest. So if you listen to episode 3, you can hear me talk a little bit about why I'm doing what I'm doing, my coaching practice, where I'm going with my coaching practice, and my meditation classes and what I'm doing with my meditation classes. So, as always, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. And the next time we get together, we will be talking about the book that I'm currently reading. So, I look forward to seeing you. Take care. Bye.